Hello, I'm Tim Allen, and this is In Frame.
David Merrill. Chatt Elwood. Hello, I'm J. Lazarus Hawk with Rising Fire Productions, and welcome to In Frame. Tonight, I'm very pleased to say we had a brief special introduction here by Tim Allen, a friend of mine from a number of years back. It's been a few years. You've been out on the West Coast.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon.
Just quickly, because I know you don't have any time to really stick around, but what's the name of the group you're working with out in Portland? What's the name of some film work that we could see, and where could people find you and let them actually get a chance to see some of the work you've been up to?
Okay, yeah, the group that I'm working with is Utility Belt Productions. We just wrapped up production on sort of this mafia comedy sort of thing that should be hitting the air here in the next 2-3 weeks. Let's see, and that one was called, what was the name of that one again?
Too many productions happening.
Yeah, no. Still working on the Kings of Concordia, which should begin production here in the next month or so. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, it was just called The Package. Pretty simple. It is a porno. No, not really. But yeah. But it's worth a watch. We'll have that posted on Vimeo here in a little while. We'll have a link to the website for In Frame. So yeah, check it out. We hope you like it.
Now, I've known you for several years. I met you here in Memphis. You left Memphis and went out to Portland, Oregon.
Yes.
5 years?
Yeah, about 5 years ago now.
5 years ago? And you're back briefly on a artistic little personal walkabout journey of yours. And
Yeah, just checking out the
I know the
countryside.
end result of that is going to be fine art.
Yes.
Very pleased to find out that you've stepped up, not only into just creating some little films of your own, but you've put together a team of people that you can work with and really develop some projects with, because I ran into your father once at the store and told him that you were one of the finer filmmakers we had. I really hated when you left town, but I understood at the same time. And I hope that maybe you'll be back in this area and we'll get a chance to actually work together again.
Yeah, I plan on being back soon. And yeah, my crew is really talented. Will Lesher Pearson and Christopher Lockman, some of the best kids that I've worked with. So we're laying down something really nice.
Excellent.
So looking forward to getting some feedback on
and
that.
I'm also, not to be negligent, I'm going to introduce Josh Atwell here, who currently is not actively doing anything, but despite that stands to me as one of the finest musicians I've ever met and absolutely one of the finest artists I've ever known. So hopefully we can talk him into becoming a little bit more active in the near future too.
Nope.
But all right, well, I appreciate you guys stopping in real quick.
Thanks for having us.
It's been really too long, Tim, and I hope that maybe we'll be able to keep a little bit better contact through Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be in touch. We'll trade some contact info, get some more shorts going back and forth, and yeah, look forward to seeing you again.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely, and as you step out, we're going to clip over and we're going to watch a little clip of a movie you did years ago.
Oh yeah, that's the Jay Montague thing?
The Jay Montague thing.
Wow,
So,
yeah, that's ages ago.
ages ago. Here's some look at some of Tim Allen's early work as we switch out for our next guest. We'll be right back.
But yeah, you were part of it.
Oh, Becky did invite me on.
Yeah, she mentioned it.
She did on there.
Yeah, which is why I'm down. So I don't know. I ain't got
I got her on the president simply because I was working on online. For anybody.
Want me to buy you a drink?
No. Buzz off.
You want to go back to my place?
Look, I didn't fucking come here to be bothered by some dickhead. You know, I don't even know what I'm doing.
No, that way.
Alright, welcome back to In Frame. That was a quick look at some early work by Tim Allen. That was a piece, can't remember the full title, The Unbecoming of John Montague. This was actually a piece of work that was commissioned by David Tankersley.
Oh,
Years
nice.
ago.
Okay, cool.
His idea was to take the SV2 audiobook thing that I had been a part of before with Roads of a Father.
Sure.
And he wanted to do a film version, and he had given everybody the concept of using the name J. Montague, and actually Black Lodge Video was one of the locations. And we contacted myself and several other filmmakers, and Mr. Tim Allen was actually the only one to produce the film. And
Very cool.
Unfortunately, we never actually got to release anything, but his was the only completed project. And the actor in it is Joe Goodwin, who we've worked with a little bit. I've worked with on a couple of small things. He's been to our acting class, and his cousin is Jennifer Goodwin.
Oh, the
On
Once
Upon a
Upon a
Time.
Once Upon a Time, sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of his background a little
Yeah.
bit. But enough of that. We welcome to the show now David Merrill with Cobrainy Media as well as Fuel Films. And now also, I don't know exactly in what capacity or under what name, but you're working as a producer on Rich Newman's Blackburn.
Blackburn Project, which is Elsinore Productions, and then two with Matt Bikert, Flyboy Films for a comedy called Smote.
I did not know that there was an active production yet.
There's several.
Well,
There's a lot. There always
most of
is.
us in town tend to do several things at once, which sometimes I think becomes the cumbersome noose around our neck.
Right.
More and more, we are realizing that there are times when getting a little more myopic might be a good idea.
Right.
So we've kind of narrowed our focus. There's a number of productions that we were hoping to be going into for early 2014.
Sure.
And as we're looking at the body of work that goes into, or will be going into, trying to do Nature of the Beast as a SAG-backed feature,
Right.
that doesn't really leave a lot of work for this production, that production, the next production, another, multiple hats at multiple times. We really need to kind of focus on a limited number. So
Sure.
we're kind of concentrating now on Nature of the Beast, and I'm doing a small project of my own
Right.
underneath of that simultaneously. Just it's a little bit more of a personal piece. It'll be a much smaller production.
Right.
And we're finding we're having better success, not trying to do 700 different things at the same time.
Yeah.
Just because each project brings with it its own hazards.
Sure.
Each project brings or needs to bring with it its own body of individuals.
Sure.
And there are a limited number of individuals in town that
Yeah.
are capable of doing certain positions, and there's a lot of people we want to work with, but their schedules have to coincide. So, and being at this level, most of us have day jobs, of course. So, but anyway, what is the next project that you are actively putting out? Is Blackburn the next actual in production?
Blackburn will probably be, well, no, not probably. It will be the first of all the productions that I'm working on that will actually that will go to production and will also be finished. You know, knock on
Right,
wood.
of course.
You know, yeah. So yeah, that will be the first one. You know, that's going to be sort of out of the gate. You know, out of really, you know, like we were saying, there are many that are in the writing formative stage, but but it's these two right now that are in the stage just before pre-production. I guess what you say is like proto-production, if
Right.
we can invent something. Pre-production, right? Exactly.
We're all, I mean, and that's actually where we are on a couple of things. One of the reasons I need to talk to you outside of any setting
Sure.
is to just figure out the order
Right.
that I need to approach the different issues that at hand on our production, just because it's cumbersome,
Sure.
and there are so many different angles, and then with going SAG, all the different rules and regulations you'll end up having to adhere to.
Right.
Are you free to discuss the budget of Blackburn at all? Is there even a budget?
Well, there is. I guess I'm free to discuss what we have so far, which is to say that, well, right now we're producing things on a limited budget, let's say. But what we are going to do is we're going to produce what the idea is that we want to produce key scenes in order to put together a teaser, and then the teaser will be used to get additional funds, further funding.
It's a tactic a lot of people are using right now.
Sure.
Marshall Pictures just did the Torah adaptation.
Yeah.
They did basically a front end scene. How's it going, man? They did a front end scene that they then are going to take out, try to attract more attention so they can go into further production,
Right.
things like that. Which I very much hope they do, because it's not the kind of production we really see in this town.
Right. Right. I hope it does well as well. So.
What? Who wrote Blackburn?
Blackburn was written by Rich Newman of Elsinore Productions, but also Rich Newman of Memphis Film Society and Fuel Film, and a gentleman by the name of Sornin Narnia. That's a pseudonym, and he is a very private person. I mean, he's written a lot of short stories, and he's been around for a while, but he doesn't disclose his actual name,
Right.
so we respect that.
Would I know him?
No, he's not from the area. He's not from Memphis, but he's written a body of work that's pretty impressive. I've read most of the short stories by now, and if you're a fan of Clive Barker or H.P. Lovecraft or Edgar Allan Poe or Stephen King, if you have read any of these things,
those are some big names to be throwing out.
his stuff is really, it's really, it follows that vein, and it goes into that very dark part of the universe in a very imaginative, cool way.
Well, I mean, if you put Edgar Allan Poe and Lovecraft in a sentence,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not the biggest Stephen King fan. I appreciate
Right.
his work, and some
Same
things are
here.
better than others,
Same here.
definitely.
Mhm.
And I definitely appreciate Barker, though I haven't read as much as I should probably.
Right.
But anytime you say Lovecraft and Poe, you've kind of set a pedestal.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah.
I'll be anxious
hmm
to see this.
I am too, or I'm anxious. I mean, I've read the stories. Now I'm anxious to see what we can bring, to the screen.
Now, I read a very brief
Mhm.
moment
Mhm.
from the script as actually as an audition
Right.
for
Right.
one of the roles.
Mhm.
I believe I got the part.
I believe
it
you
feels-
did too.
it
We have to
feels-
talk to the director to be
I was
sure.
gonna say,
But
it felt like a good
yeah.
good fit, and it felt like the energy in the room was positive.
it was a great read.
But it didn't really give away a lot of what the story was.
Right.
He
Right,
gave
right,
me a
right.
small taste of who my character, or the character I was reading for, excuse me, I don't want to misspeak, of who the character I was reading for is. But no context really for how that character fits into any kind of larger story.
Right.
So I have really no idea at this time what the story is. So bringing up those names really excites me.
Yeah.
Because again, not what's being produced in town by and large. And I'm not saying we don't have talented filmmakers. It's just
No, we do. We have.
there
yeah.
seems to be an impression that the only films made here are either mumblecore or full of pimps and hoes,
Right.
because that
right.
was such a big thing with Hustle and
Oh,
Flow.
sure.
But we really have a lot of other things happening,
Right.
and
yeah.
I'm excited to see, you know, a real horror film. Now, as a horror film, I'm not. I won't say I'm a horror film fan because of what a lot of horror is seen as now. I don't like splatter films
Right.
so much.
Right.
I really like the intellectual, the ones that make you think, which is why I did like Clive Barker's work. I do like Lovecraft's work. Is this more along those lines, or is this about, you know, the next big special effect moment?
This is most definitely, this goes back to the roots of, you know, the really great, to my way of thinking, really great Gothic, horror stories, you know, films that were made in the, you know, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you know, where it was really driven by a story and by character and mystery. This is not a, it's not a gory film. There is going to be, you know, there is some violence. It is used judiciously in order to move the plot forward. There is, of course, going to be, you know, tension and terror because
Right, well,
that's the
you are dealing with a 21st century audience.
Right.
So
Right.
on some level, if you want to sell your film, and by sell I don't mean make money, I mean
No,
get
right.
audience to put butt in chair.
Sure.
If you were trying to sell your movie to an audience, you're going to have to give them at least some percentage
Sure.
of what they might expect by horror.
Right.
But as you said, that can be done judiciously, that can be done very tastefully,
Right.
and it can be done in such a way that it is psychologically effective as opposed to visually the aesthetic of being a horror film, which
Right,
is
right.
splatter or just gruesome effect.
These days with the gruesome effect, or with the, you know, or with, you know, violence and splatters, you're saying, this one really, you know, we really want to take the audience on a dark journey, you know. I mean, and you know, we're getting, you know, so we're almost to, you know, my favorite time of year. We're almost to Halloween, and so, you know, someone asked me the other day, we were talking about, you know, I said, well, it's my favorite holiday, and it truly is. And a friend of mine asked me, well, why is that? And I said, well, because, you know, I think that, you know, from the time that I was a small child, it's the idea that, you know, you could sit around and tell, you know, these ghost stories can be told, you know, around the campfire, if you will,
Right.
amongst friends. And, you know, there's a crisp chill in the air, and, you know, and it sort of takes you on this journey to a dark place, you know, for a brief time. And it's thrilling and it's exciting.
Well, if you look at the various cultural histories
Sure.
that pick that time of year, oddly, even as, you know, opposite sides of the globe that they might be, in Mexico you see the Day of the Dead,
Yeah.
and that is
Yeah.
the celebration of the spirits that have come before us and passed beyond.
Sure.
And then you go over to Celtic history in Ireland and Scotland and that part of the country, and you look at their legends and myths of that time of the year, and again, it's a celebration of that aspect of being,
Right.
the what might be beyond, the coming back from beyond,
Sure.
the connection between those two realms, as it were. And I believe the theory is that it's the time of year, that
Right.
harvest moon, that veil between
Worlds.
the spirit world and the physical
Sure.
world has now been narrowed somehow. And somehow that's something that has become a part of cultural history across the globe.
Right.
And I think that there is, I mean, how many people always say Halloween is the favorite,
Sure.
that's the favorite holiday.
Mhm.
I think there's a connection we have to that time of year.
Oh,
to-
I
to-
agree.
Where
Yeah.
we're still connected to
Yeah.
our instincts
Yeah.
somewhat.
It's primal. I mean, the thing is people talk about, well, the first, whether you're calling it emotion or instinct, really would have to be, fear as a survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
So then you think about, and these are we're talking about these are ancient themes that are that cross cultural boundaries, geographic boundaries. That just about every civilization on Earth, they have some, let's say, to my way of thinking, celebration of this
Right.
aspect of the human psyche.
Well, I think it's an imperative,
Mm.
like you said, primal.
Right.
I think
Right.
it's a primal imperative that we seek something beyond ourselves.
Sure.
Therefore, we look to God,
Mhm.
or in some culture, multiple gods.
Right.
But I think we also look to our past.
Yes.
We look to our ancestors and those that came before us.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important part of who we are.
Sure.
And in my opinion, I think that's one of the things where America is weak.
Mm. Yeah.
Because you look at how cultures across the planet treat their elderly,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at how America treats their elderly.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, we should be ashamed of ourselves. Even, all this talk about Mexicans coming across the borders,
Mhm.
or foreigners coming in planes from across the borders.
Mm-hmm.
When they're here, look at how they live.
Right.
They still are multi-generational.
Mm-hmm.
They still revere and respect their elders and learn from their elders.
Sure.
There was a time when all of our history was told verbally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those primal connections are important. And I think that we've, in many ways, lost a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that there are certain celebrations that we've locked in place,
Mm-hmm.
much like the Halloween celebration or
Sure.
Samhain in
Right.
some cultures, that because we take the time to recognize that, we still maintain a connection to it somehow.
I think so too, and I think that keeping these things, keeping these themes, in balance, it's just as important as say, getting a good night's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that these ancient cultures, it was sort of it acts almost as like a I think another way to put it is sort of like a safety valve. It's a way of it's like a way of releasing a lot of these some of these darker, not necessarily darker forces, but darker emotions and things
Right.
that people are coping with, either as an individual or as a society. I know that in African cultures, warriors would go to war, and then however long that they were at war, then they would come back to the tribe, and there was a ceremony that they went through, a cleansing ceremony,
Mhm.
where they divested themselves of all of this, this negative energy.
You'll actually find that practice under different names with subtle,
Mm-hmm.
Variations
Mm-hmm.
in almost all of your
Mm-hmm.
tribal cultures. South American, a lot of the
Right.
American Indian before the decimations happened.
Right.
That was a part of a lot of that.
Right. So I think in a small way, these stories, these films, hopefully if they're done well, they can act as it can act as kind of a cultural catharsis. Like you see it, you experience it for the couple of hours that you're there with your friends or your family. You can even talk about it, and you talk about the parts of it that you liked or the parts that you didn't like. But you've come through this shared experience together, and now you've transcended it, so you can grow beyond it.
Well, if, as you said, this man can rival the quality of a Lovecraft or a Poe story, then that's a story that, once seen by a group of people, can create a common consciousness moment
Mm-hmm.
where everybody realizes kind of en masse
Mm-hmm.
that there's this,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be. And it can be a moment of revelation like you'd see in many of the early Twilight Zones,
Right.
or it can be a moment of horror like Hitchcock did masterfully in Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
I often go back to Psycho when I talk about horror films because it's one of the greatest to me.
Oh, sure.
Because there's not a lot of blood, there's not a lot of gore.
Very little.
And in the moment where you get that little bit,
Mm-hmm.
you actually don't see anything.
Right.
You see a knife in the sky. You see dark liquid. You see something going down the drain. You see a shower curtain move. You see the water. You see a girl in terror. But you never see the knife hit anything.
Right.
You never see guts pouring out. You never see the blood coming out of the body even. You just get all these hints. And by doing that, Hitchcock immediately affected everyone in that audience the same way, which is impossible to do, or should be impossible to do. But if he had shown us all of it, if we'd actually seen the knife go in, some people in the audience would have said, that's about what I expected. Some people in the audience would have been grossed out. Other people might have laughed and said that looked fake. But by not showing it, everybody in that audience immediately pictured the worst possible thing they themselves could imagine. So Hitchcock made the viewer do the work.
Right. Active participant.
And I think that is genius filmmaking.
He realized that it was the power of the mind to fill in those blank spaces, and that each individual audience member would fill in those blank spaces with, moments of personal terror.
What works? Yeah,
right,
in their
right.
scheme. And his knowledge of that, his use of light, shadow, color, not in Psycho, but in other films.
Sure.
His ability to understand how all of that affected the human mind, whether it was a camera angle, the amount of shadow on a face, the amount of light on a face. All of these different things create an instant reaction in the base instincts of the human brain. To this day, the MGM lion. If you play the MGM lion for a monkey, I think it's a chimpanzee specifically, there's a chemical reaction in the brain because in the wild, that's terror.
Right, sure.
If you play it for the human brain, there's the same reaction. And we are thousands of years out of the jungle, past the chimp. But there's still that base instinctive chemical release when we hear the sound of the lion. And I think light, shadow, color, angle, all of that stuff is exactly the same type of thing. Someone like Hitchcock knew that.
Sure.
Someone who knows how to do that in word, Lovecraft, Poe, can immediately grasp anybody who's involved in that story.
Right.
And if you have a filmmaker who's worth half his gas, then you are going to find something eminently watchable that people will be talking about. And my understanding is Rich Newman has already had success as a filmmaker. With just lost the title completely. When he helped work Daylight Fades.
Daylight Fades, and
He helped he was a, I don't want to admit, production manager?
I can't remember exactly. Yes, I think I know that he had something to do with production, and
He was
also
behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes. Yeah.
And he helped them steer their production towards some limited success.
Yeah, towards distribution.
And I was going to say, and get their own actual distribution deal. My understanding is I think he has distribution lined up for Blackburn, or at least knows what he wants to do.
There is already interest. There are interested parties, I should say. Probably the best way to put that.
I don't want to misspeak anything.
Right,
publicly,
right.
But,
Yeah.
And I honestly, I say that because I don't know anything, so I wouldn't want to misspeak.
Right.
He said that he was seeking distribution, and I kind of got the impression he knew exactly how to,
Oh, he
or
does.
where to.
He does. Yeah.
Which I actually was one of the things I want to sit and talk to him about one-on-one outside as well. I would also like to get him on the show.
I think it's.
I think it's important that to show whether our viewers are local, whether someone outside of the Memphis area watches this at some point. I think it's important that they see productions growing, and I would love to have him on here on the front end.
Sure.
I'd love to get him here, maybe on production, maybe even bring the show to the set one day, or something along those lines.
Great idea.
And just
Great idea.
and really kind of get it as, I mean, that's the purpose of this show, is to bring out the artists and let whoever decides to click the links, whoever decides to sit in front of their computer long enough to actually meet the person and see what it is they are doing and what they're trying to do.
Sure.
And if their Facebook goes up by one person, we've successfully done
Right.
something.
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of what we want to do with this show. Changing speeds a little bit off of Blackburn. Cobraney with Shelby.
Shelby Elwood.
What do you guys have in the works right now? Is there anything you can actually talk about?
A lot of things. Well, I guess I kind of touch on lightly, because there are some things that are still being negotiated.
Right.
So.
When I'm in your office, I see
Yeah.
all the
You
different
see a lot
papers
of-
on there. So I don't want to.
Sure.
I don't want to speak on anything that shouldn't be spoken on. I don't want to put you on the spot on
Yeah,
any. But
no, that's
if
fine.
there's anything you are able to,
Let's see. I could tell you that I probably speak in generalities and just say that there are a couple of feature film projects and a couple of cable show projects that we've been working on, and we are getting every day. We work on these every day, and people say, well, when you say work on it, I said, well, I mean, what I mean is whether it's writing or the development or finding talent to attach. I mean,
phone calls,
phone
emails.
calls. Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah. Mm-hmm.
production.
What you think
being
of
a producer, basically.
Right. It is what you think of as the development phase, which a lot of people outside of the business would, well, what's development? Well, development is
A lot
all
of
these
people seem to
things.
think you have an idea, you write it down, and you're ready to go.
right,
and
right,
boy,
right.
that production's going to tank fast.
Yeah, there's a little bit more to it than that, but we are getting ever closer, and Shelby's got she should probably come and talk to you
Well,
too.
I invited her, but I understand
yeah.
that her schedule right now is
Yeah,
chaotic.
it's a little it's been a little it's crazy for all of us, but she's got some stuff that some wonderful things that she's personally written. We have some things that we've worked on together, and I tease the audience a little and say that that one of the projects is a fairly big budgeted period piece, and I will let her talk about that
Wow.
at some point. And then the other two.
We just had Willie Bearden on here
Oh, good. Yeah.
2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he had, as you know, One Came Home.
Yeah.
It was a
Wonderful
period
film.
piece.
Wonderful film.
And
yeah.
boy,
Willie
he,
is.
he said he'd
yeah.
never do a period piece again.
Well, right. Yeah. And then I would say, like, probably every filmmaker has said, at one point or another, that I'm never going to do that again. And then, of course, until the next time.
The next thing you do.
Yeah, the next thing you do, because
Never
and
say never.
Never say never, and I know that I know Willie, and I think of him as both a friend and as a mentor. So I know some of the things that he went through.
Well,
in order to
if
get
you
film
know
made, so.
if you know Willie,
Mhm.
he is a friend.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
can't know
Right.
Willie and not have him as a friend. It's just
That's
not his
true.
personality.
That's true.
And as far as a mentor, I don't
Mhm.
think anybody in this city that wants to do film should go without meeting Willie.
He is one of the most generous people, and when I say that, he gives of himself and of his time and of his knowledge and his wisdom.
And he has an
Um,
immense amount of all of that
Yes,
to
he does.
give.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I said, if anybody in this city, anybody that can get to this city that
Right.
wants to do production,
Right.
my personal opinion is they should sit down with Willie for at least an hour.
Absolutely.
I have
Absolutely.
so much respect for that man.
Without fail.
I
Yes.
was
do
so
too.
honored that he came to our show.
Yeah. I mean, he's a wonderful, wonderful man, and so one of the things of saying that that he wouldn't do one, but then it makes me think that there are probably like half a dozen projects that I know that he would want to do that probably would have to
yeah.
be period, that would have to be period films, so.
Well, he and David are working on something.
Yes, David
So-
Tankersley, and Dave Tankersley is another person, his writing partner that I greatly admire, and
Absolutely.
he was actually part of, speaking about giving and giving of their time and oneself, David came and did the table read that we did for the film that Matt is producing, Smoked. last week, and
Okay.
he I don't know if people realize this or not, but it's just a table read, but you are still acting.
You can't go wrong with David.
Right, and he played a very pivotal role, in the table read, and it was just fantastic. And
One of the things I love about David is there is absolute, and this is in his personal life as well, but I speak of as an actor. There's absolutely no pretense.
No, he's a very
You tell him what you need from him, and
Yeah.
he extremely naturally
right.
gives you a character, and you can see that there's already background in his head. There's already a history who that character is. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so quick and natural with him. We used him on the trailer shoot that we're putting together for Nature of the Beast for our campaign to raise money. And he plays the role of a coroner. He just steps up and very quickly delivers a line and moves on. But there's this natural pause, there's this natural characteristic, this little motion, this little facial expression. I mean, he gives you all these little elements in such a short period of time. And probably the key thing, as Marcus Kent Hampson has pointed out to many people, years ago when we filmed Words of a Father, which actually David is the reason that story even exists. That was part of the audiobook series he was doing. And then he suggested I turn it into a film as well.
Okay.
But we were filming that, and he was the lead character. And pretty much the whole film is voiceover, except for one key moment at the tail end, which we went ahead and filmed him, and he spoke it, even though we didn't have the best sound. We let him speak the line.
Okay.
Took us a year to get the edit right, the way I wanted it to be, and the way we both felt it really flowed and worked. At that point, we called David up, had him come over. Kent set up the microphone and all of that. We did not even give him the video to watch because we were going to trim it down into...
Sure.
We gave him the dialogue.
Sure.
Or the monologue. He read the monologue. Kent took it, loaded it into the footage, laid it down on the other audio track that we had, the natural audio. He got to the point where we had the one recording of him speaking. His pentameter, his rhythm, his volume, everything was so precise that Kent left both audio tracks playing, and you cannot tell the difference. A year later without practice. You ended up removing the on-set one? Okay. I know when you played it, there was not a beat missed. It was just dead on, and it was just such a natural flow.
Sure.
It was a year later, but he knew the mindset of the character, the disposition of the character, the vocal intonations that would cause. And they, beat for beat, they were on where he was the previous year. And that's just professionalism.
It's incredible to watch him work, and the screenplay that we were reading last week is a comedy. And so he's
Lord.
doing this very probably would put it Southern fried characterizations.
He's very natural,
which was
in
really
any way.
natural, and just had trouble.
You could get that out of him just by
Yeah.
going to lunch.
Well, yeah, to be sure, but then when he is acting, when he's acting up the part, and he's given the freedom, to follow those instincts, the results are very, are quite impressive. And really enjoyable.
You cannot go wrong, as I said.
Yeah,
I
really
love
enjoyable.
David.
He's a nice man.
He is a father figure, a brother, a mentor, a supporter. There aren't enough words to cover.
Right.
And the same said for Willie. It's just, we really have been fortunate because we've had both of them as guests. I've been fortunate enough to work on projects with both of them in some capacity. And there really are not two finer people that you could end up working with.
It's a tremendous thing to be, because the thing is that the way that often that we work is so solitary, because like if you're working for, and I know that you write, and I know that they write and I write, it must by definition be very solitary. So it's difficult, to go out into the world, and then you have friends that if they don't work in the same in the same profession, or it's hard because it's not the same day at work that
Right.
everybody else has. So then to find someone else like that, that understands the territory, it's a great asset. It's a great help just to be able to to talk to them and talk to them about your struggle, your artistic struggle, and have them understand.
Well, David
Yeah.
Tankersley's been
Oh,
through,
sure.
I mean,
Sure.
any kind of struggle you can think of as far as a writer would what he'd face. I think
Mhm.
David has probably faced and overcome. He's written short story, he's written novel, he's written description, he's written technical, he's
Mhm.
done
Marketing,
scripts,
advertising.
marketing. I mean,
Yeah.
he's covered everything, even
Yeah.
social review.
Mm-hmm.
He worked at a RSVP magazine for
Sure.
a while, so
Mhm.
it's incredible the body of work that
Mhm.
he has under his belt. And between he and Willie, I
Yeah.
end up reluctant to call myself a writer as such because I
Right.
think both of them are so much better.
Right.
I do what I can, and I may be better than some and not as good as others, but I think those two are probably
Mm-hmm.
two of the finest in town, especially working in film.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not to be harsh on anybody because I include myself in the pile.
Mhm.
I think the weakest thing Memphis film has
Mhm.
is the writing and story
I-
development.
I agree, which is something that like by us doing by doing the table reads, by both doing the table reads for Matt's film Smote, and for Rich's film for Blackburn, by insisting that we do those, which we were all in agreement that we would do those. It is a direct effort to work on that writing, to hone the story down,
Yeah.
and to work on it, to get it as best as it possibly can be.
Well, I think we've actually had the discussion
Oh,
once,
sure.
and the person who actually pinned it for me was Craig Brewer's sister-in-law, Erin,
Mm-hmm.
who does a lot of his post and production stuff
Mhm.
on a lot of his productions.
Mm-hmm.
And of course is married to Jason Freeman, the musician who he just put the album out.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to her about why I wanted to do a show like this. This is before we actually launched. I was telling her why I wanted to do a show like this, and it was because I really do think Memphis has an enormous amount of unlocked artistic potential
I agree.
many a number of people.
I agree.
And her response was to agree with me, and then immediately look me in the face and say, the problem is, most of it's undeveloped.
Right.
And I think it was like someone pulling back the blind and letting the sun in, because it was the first time I really thought of how to word it. And it was so it was such a plain thought, so obvious that it was one of those things I just missed. I thought people were doing this or doing that, and what it came down to is they simply weren't developing.
Right. Right.
And I think that's because most of us, especially in the film community, I won't necessarily say this is as true for music or finer art or anything like that, but especially in the film community, we don't know how to go about developing.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't been challenged. We haven't seen what it takes. No one in this town that's an actor understands audition for a class.
Mm-hmm.
Go to New York or LA and you don't take an acting class without auditioning. The teachers have to think you're worth it.
Mm-hmm.
In this town, our class included, you show up, you pay your money, you have a class.
Sure.
But anywhere else you prepay, you audition for classes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a certain amount of professionalism. You have to be able to bend your schedule. Even when you can't, you have to find a way.
Right.
And people aren't used to that here. And it's no condemnation by any means, because we all have to pay our bills.
Right. Right.
But 3-4 years ago, that was fine. If that's how you want to work that way. There's enough little filmmakers making little films that keep you going.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those little filmmakers have outgrown little filmmaking.
Sure.
And they want to step up, and they want a bigger challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to turn out and find cast and crew both
I agree.
that are ready to step up to that
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
And why is that important now? not only because filmmakers in town, in the region, are wanting to make bigger and better, but as we just saw a month ago, HBO was just here.
Sure.
The Vampire Diaries
Sure.
were just casting here. There's work coming this way.
Right.
Real work.
Right.
Real work with a paycheck. And I'm not saying that working on one of our sets or your sets or whatever isn't real work. Hell, it might be more work because there isn't money. But work that will pay you and get your name out there is coming
Right.
to this region.
Right.
I've been telling people this for 2 years. Some people laughed at me, some people agreed with me, some people were just skeptical. Why would it? It's because Louisiana is maybe going to screw up their incentive program. Atlanta is opening the doors, North Carolina is opening the doors, and Mississippi
Has opened the
has
floodgates.
opened the floodgates on what they're willing to do. And Quarry settled in nicely,
Sure.
got everything they wanted. And they plan on coming back if they get picked up. They told Keith Goff they want to come back, and if they do, they probably want him to quit his day job
Right. Right.
and go full-time with them.
Yeah.
That's every real actor's desire, is to get a job like that.
Oh, sure. Sure.
And without, honestly, and maybe this is completely rhetorical, but you can respond if you feel. Honestly, how many of the local actors in town here are ready, truly ready,
Yeah.
to step up to a Hollywood-backed production?
Yeah. You know, I mean, and right, the short answer is that I don't know. I couldn't give you a number.
There are a few.
There are a few.
One of
There
them
are-
is in this room right now, and will be on the show in a little bit. Shelby Sun. Amazing individual on many levels.
Very talented young man, very bright individual.
But he's...
I'm a little biased. I will tell you I'm biased.
I don't
So-
consider myself biased. I consider myself honest, and I don't know if his mother spoke to him recently or not. But
She talked
came
to him every day.
She came down to our class on Monday last week, and I took a few moments to tell her exactly what I think of her son, and I meant every word I said. I've had the chance to work with him once or twice in odd capacity for him on one of those. And I find the man eminently talented, and he's ready to step up to something like that. But there are people I work with that aren't.
Right, and it is a difficult thing to tell someone that has this this belief in themselves, But the way the metaphor that I've always used with people, whether they're working on acting or writing or whatever it is that they're doing, it's that I would always say, for me it was a thing of as far as professional development, find someone that is doing what you want to do and that you respect, vis-a-vis Willie Bearden or
Exactly.
David Tankersley, and then go to them and seek criticism and challenge. And I say this because it's a fine thing to be encouraged, but and I always say that I didn't, but friends that played high school football or college football, you would never see a coach talking to his team and saying, "Hey, look, we've got this big game, but you know what? Relax, sit on the couch, take a nap, eat some bonbons. Here, have a soda. Don't worry about it." No. They're always in your face going,
Pump up, pump up, pump
get
up.
off your lazy butt, pump up,
Get ready
work,
for the
work,
big-
work,
yeah.
work, prepare, learn the plays, learn the strategy.
There
work.
is no substitute for preparation.
Right.
And I
Right.
think if we're going to say the number one problem in Memphis region filmmaking is writing and good storytelling, the number two thing is pre-production and planning.
Yes.
There is, you
Yes.
shouldn't do a feature without at least 6 to 9 months
Right.
of pre-production. And a lot of people are writing their stories, whipping together their teams, putting together their cast, and going and shooting. And they're getting what they get, good, bad, or otherwise. I'm not saying some people might not get lucky and pull it off.
Right, but the ready, fire, aim,
Yeah. What
yeah.
I do know is I watched my partner a couple months ago, a month and a half ago, plan out a shoot that on paper was scheduled at 5.5, almost 6 hours. And in 3.5 hours we were done. Because he spent 2 months planning that one-day shoot. And we were fortunate. We had Keith Goff, Don Myers, David Tankersley. We had people on set that knew what they were doing.
Right.
And, you know, our producer here, Alex Mazar, was also in our cast, and he was a last-minute addition because somebody got injured.
Sure.
And he just kind of stepped up to the plate.
Sure.
But in 3.5 hours, we did 5.5, 6 hours of work because of that pre-planning, because of actors with professionalism. I've told actors, actually I've told Alex, you can't learn everything from me and or Jamie in our class. Go see Daniel. I sent him to another acting coach because he needed that. And it changed him in many ways. It redirected some of his priorities. It helped him find a clearer understanding of a few things that I had been explaining to him, simply a different way.
Sure.
Daniel, as you know, has his way of saying things. And at that moment in that time, that was what Alex needed to hear, and I knew that. So I sent him there. You've got to do what you've got to do to succeed.
Yeah.
I've been telling Alex, and he, up until last week, has been doing this. Go find the filmmakers in town that are worth working with, that you want to work with, that you find respect for. Dan Baker was one of the names I dropped.
Very talented guy.
He connected with Dan Baker. He ended up with a role in the trailer that Dan Baker made for a book last week, except he had a car accident. He had to face that frustration. He went through the whole actor's experience. I found a director I love. I got a role I like. I had a car accident. I can't go. I've now disappointed the director. And he has to worry about us creating that relationship or
Sure.
what that's done.
Sure.
Thank God it's Dan Baker.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
yeah.
the man has a heart the size of this city and will be easily get over it. But that was one of those things that Alex had to face as an actor and had to figure out how to overcome. And he did the right thing. As soon as he was able to, he called and told Dan exactly what happened,
Sure.
that he was sorry, etc. And Dan completely understood.
Of course. Yeah.
But he didn't leave him hanging. He handled it professionally.
Right.
Keith Goff got hired on Quarry
Right.
as a body double for Logan Marshall Green, I think is the name. If I've gotten
Okay.
that wrong, sue me.
It's a lot of names.
It's the guy from Zero Dark 30, I
Sure.
believe. One of the first things he did was call Jamie and myself and ask, what do I do? How do I'm on this big set. It's the first time for me. What would I do? What should I do? And, we gave him different pieces of advice. One of the key things that we said, and I really think this helped him, because he ended up establishing a wonderful relationship with many of the people on the set. Anytime you hear other people on the set, man, this is taking forever, I can't believe there's a better way, any of that, walk away. Don't be around the crowd spouting out all the crap.
Yeah.
Because you don't want the association.
Right.
And sure enough, he got separate from them, he got recognized, he got talked to, he established relationships, they gave him a couple other things to do. Those other people were only there for a couple days and gone.
Yeah.
He was there for almost every day, and they're asking him to come back. So these little moments of professionalism can really make a difference. We're going to take a brief break here, and we'll be right back after this.
Dig! I said dig! The picturesque hamlet of Bolton, Connecticut. Your typical New England town. However, under its beauty is a tragic history. Meet young filmmaker Pierce Lindale, born and raised. Perhaps you know Pierce's grandfather, the former trooper of the town, and a beloved public figure. Pierce's friends have just helped him make a movie, and it premieres tonight. Not everyone is happy about it. This could be the best night of Pierce's life, had he only known. I filmed your death. portrait of today's youth. Always looking for an escape. Always looking for a distraction. Always, I filmed your death! Outside the public access channel, a popular television show personality makes a disturbing discovery when he finds that I filmed your death. Two intoxicated youths take it to the next level. But when the lights go off, I filmed your death. All of these deaths plus yours, I filmed your death. I filmed your death. Not everyone wants to be in a movie.
Alright, that was a quick look at I Filmed Your Death, which is Sam Baer's production. Hopefully he'll have that done here fairly soon. I'm quite anxious to see it. Do you know Sam?
Not personally, no.
He got, let's see if I can get this right. Peter Took from the Monkees is in his film. Lloyd Kaufman, who created Trauma Films, is in his film. Merrill Allen, G.G. Allen's brother, is in this film. And Michael Horse, who played Deputy Hawk on Twin Peaks, is in this film. Sam really did his work, and he's put together a really bizarre little film, and it looks amazing. He took Charlie Metz, John Shaw, they went up to Connecticut, filmed most of this movie up there. He came back here just a couple weeks ago. I shot a scene for him that he's going to use as a TV clip or an insert shot. And Matt Martin of Black Lodge and it's supposed to be some sort of science show for kids. And Matt Martin and I are the hosts of this show. I cannot wait to see. I mean, what I did is ridiculous. I'm up there, getting my best, modern day urban voice and yo and all. It's ridiculous, and I cannot wait to see what he does with it.
This isn't like a modern Bill Nye kind of thing.
No.
Okay.
No.
No Dancing with the Stars for you after this.
This is very wrong.
Okay.
No, I did not know he did that. That's hysterical. Anyway, that's I Filmed Your Death by Sam Baer. Hopefully we'll be seeing the full production here in the next few months. I don't know that for sure. I haven't spoken to him in a little while, but it really should be a wonderful production, and I think it's something that Memphis needs. So, I do want to mention before I do our introduction that we lost a local filmmaker today, was it?
Yesterday. Yeah.
Brian Churchill apparently had a 5-year battle with cancer. Many people did not even know this outside of his family, from what I understand. But he has lost that battle, and we've lost a filmmaker here in town. And we just want to say our condolences and sympathies to the family and friends of Mr. Churchill, and any time we lose anyone like that, it's definitely a loss felt through the community, and he will be missed. On that sad note, joining us now in the studio, or at Black Lodge, Chatt Graham Elwood, the gentleman we were just speaking of here a few moments ago.
Thank you very much for having me. It's good to see you,
Absolutely.
David.
Now, a little background on you is, let's see, actor, musician, dancer, writer, a bit, director. I don't know that you've done a second, but I had the good fortune of being your assistant on Pick Up the Phone,
That's correct.
which was a Fuel Films back
Film,
production.
Yeah.
It's Fuel Film, and it was 48 hours. too.
For one of the
Yeah,
48-hour projects, and that was your first time as a director.
That's correct.
Give us a little bit on that.
Well, that was kind of the trial by fire with directing for me. No pun intended on the fire there. But, well, I mean, being thrown in when we're usually, like you were talking about, the importance of pre-production and really taking those few months in many cases, and I really wish I would have had the time to do something like that. But Shelby Elwood approached me and said, "Hey, I have the script. 48-hour launch is coming up. I'd like you to pitch it and see what's going on." And so, you were very generous in offering your support,
Absolutely,
and assisting me in gathering crew and assistant director, and really, being just looking over my shoulder, making sure everything was smooth with it.
I'll admit there was an ulterior motive. I had met you some period of time prior to that, and immediately recognized an incredible amount of talent that you have.
Well, thank you.
Especially because, and I won't give it away, but you are not at all the age people would assume you are. You are much younger, and you are outstanding not only as an actor or as a musician, but also just as a person. Just to encounter you in a public setting, have a conversation with you, I could tell from that there was a serious quality person inside the shell that I had just met. And I truly wanted the opportunity to be on a project with that and share that and see that develop and see what that side of you would be like, because till then you hadn't been really behind the camera. You've done acting, you've done modeling, you've been on stage as a musician, but you never really directed.
That's correct.
Or steered a production. And I knew you had it in you. It was like you said, it was a trial by fire. It was a shotgun film. I mean, 48 hours to go from, yes, you can do this, to, okay, how do we do it?
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, Marcus Kent Hampson and myself immediately wanted to be available.
Absolutely.
So you had probably the toughest part of production covered.
Oh, I had some seasoned
Who was
pros
shooting?
backing, of course. Right.
And then you were fortunate enough you had Travis Stone.
Oh, I know.
How do you ever go wrong with Travis Stone?
I
Even
know.
though we didn't see him on screen, the presence that voice gives you.
Oh, such a great talent, and we only had a very small cast of 3 actually. We had Melissa Jecker and Carrie Belguth as the 2 women featured in that, and I think we've got a clip to show a bit later on the show.
do.
But and then Travis is, you never even see his face; he's just the voice. And I think,
But Travis is always the voice.
Oh, I know, I know. And he had worked on Ray as one of the saxophone players that quit the band, and the Ray Charles.
He actually had a better job on that set, and I can't remember what position it was, but I think it was still in the band. But they replaced him with a bigger name, like somebody who's recognizable, and moved him to the position he ended up in. But
that's
he
something I
actually
didn't
was
know.
good enough to have a better role until producers realized they wanted to put a name there.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I don't know how much you know about what Daniel Martin has been doing, but Kid Diamond and the Devil,
Right.
every piece of music in that was written by and performed by
Right.
Travis.
That's right. He,
He's
also a
amazing.
great musician in his own right too. And you see some of the concert footage that this guy at the, I believe it's the Empty Shell Band, that he performs with, and I mean, they rock.
He really
they turn it up.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Daniel came over one day and he brought a sample of music that he was using for Kid Diamond, and he played it. I was like, "Who is this?" And he's like, "That's Travis." I was like, "Well, who wrote it?" Travis. I was like, "Hold up.
Mm-hmm.
He's this good as an actor, and he's this good as a guitar player, and he's that good at writing the music." if I didn't like him so much, I'd punch him.
Oh, geez. Well, I think we had one little run-in with my dog there, but we don't have to get into that while we were filming.
I was going to ask how your dog's issues were coming along.
No, she's no longer in the city. One of the sacrifices of being very busy in the city, you want to give proper care to your animals. So my brother is taking care of her, a nice, expansive farmland
Just
there.
send her to a more Aryan nation.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Not to put you on
funny
the
thing
spot.
about Travis, we were doing this this one shoot where we, being a 48-hour shoot, we had to have everything scheduled pretty much down to the minute. And music is another part of that we'll get into. But for Travis's point, we had 2 hours, I think, total. We had to let, I believe Kent was going off to do a different shoot.
Yeah, so say he had another gig he had to do.
That's right. And then...
Which gave you and I like an hour and a half, food,
right,
fluid, and figure out where the hell we were.
And give the ladies a chance,
give
the
them
actresses a chance to go and
look at their next scene and freshen up. But you and I had to figure out, okay, what have we done?
Well, Travis
What's
came
left?
He came in that night, and I saw him. He got out of the car, and his jaw was swollen, and he was just moaning in pain.
I remember that.
And I was freaking out because we
ended
needed
up
to talk,
getting him,
and he sounded like he had a golf ball in his jaw.
We ended up getting him whiskey because of it.
We stopped and got a fifth or a pint or something of Jack Daniels just so he could take a shot right before
so he could soak
his
the-
line,
he had
his
tooth
wisdom tooth.
abscess
went,
or
yeah,
something?
it's some sort of
he
bad
had
tooth.
problems
Terrible.
with his wisdom
Oh.
teeth right before
That's
having to do this voiceover
Oh my
part.
God.
And you come through, and he sounds. It added to it though because his character, as the phone calls continued through that
What
film.
impressed me was that that was the first time I had actually face to face met Travis. I knew him because I'd seen him in The Conversion, where he does that fantastic radio DJ voice thing. And that was the first time I met him.
Right.
And he came up in there, and like you said, it really did look like someone had just taken a 9-iron to his face and left the ball inside.
Yeah.
Not once did he consider not doing it.
No.
He was like, let's do this.
Yeah.
He's like, I might need a drink. Let's do it. And it was perfect, like I said before with David and professional from the start.
He knocked it out, and it really added to it because his character deteriorates a bit into the bottle as the progression of the film goes on, and that just sort of happened to work out pretty well. That he took a shot right before each.
It really, I mean, for something that came together literally in 48 hours. Kent and I both hadn't even seen the script until we were at the table after the pitch. In fact, I think we were sitting at the table reading it during the pitch.
Yes.
Hoping that was going to get picked.
I gave you a
that would be
copy while I was
yeah.
up there.
So at that point, we didn't know even if the film was going to get done. That's the first we'd seen the script. You went downstairs to do the pitch. He and I sat there and started breaking down what we would do and how we could do it. So we had some kind of pre-production if we went forward. So for something that had, lightning production, was your first production, it was not a short script. What was that? 7 to 10 pages? And I think the film is 8
minutes. Yeah.
8.5 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
In 48 hours, that's a lot to accomplish, especially for a first-time director. And I think you got one of the more watchable films. I think you had, in that bunch, one of the more finished, I think is the word I'm looking for.
And if people want to see it, the Fuel Film compilation DVD
Yes.
will be here at Black Lodge.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. We will provide them with copies. So.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
We strongly
Wonderful.
encourage that.
Mhm.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And it is, the film in question, if we hadn't said already, is called Pick Up the Phone.
Mm-hmm.
It was written by your mother,
Yes.
Shelby Elwood. Lost the girl's name, Melissa.
Yes, Melissa Jecker, Carrie Vilgath were both acting in that, and Travis Stone, and then of course you, assistant director. We had Amelia Hauser running wardrobe, and then Philip Mears running camera behind Kent. Hampson,
Right.
Marcus Kent Hampson.
Right, that's right. That was one of the opportunities where Kent said he wanted to actually bring in someone and kind of show him the ropes.
So I wasn't the
On
only
how
one that
a
was a little
lightning-
bit
yeah.
fresh on this.
And well, he was 14 at the time?
13 or
14 at the time. And
He was a champ.
he put it in.
Yeah, that's
That-
one of those where you see these young individuals come in that are new to the business and they just pay attention. They have their own creative input, but they're willing to learn and do things like the more seasoned veterans will tell them to do it and pick it up. And
Well,
really
again,
reflects well.
one of the things that, I was impressed with you. I saw someone who had skills, someone who had talent, someone who this, that, and the other. Then someone told me your age. I accused him of lying a couple times, finally was made to believe this, and what you just said. There are these certain people. Haley Parker.
Oh
Right.
wow!
Dear Lord.
Right.
That little girl has done everything already. She's a veteran. Writer, director, actor, and who knows what else.
That's right.
And CJ.
CJ, her sister, right, who is just coming up
Just
as well.
just as talented. We worked with her on Cold Blooded.
I met them on the very first project I ever did in Memphis, along with Travis Stone. It was a pilot called Tamara and the Scene that David Winston
Right.
had written and
Right.
directed, and it was
don't
a
think I've
pilot
seen that.
episode. Well, we'll have to show it to you at some point, but it was a pilot episode for a potential TV series that was a high school kind of dramedy about a girl moving to an inner city Memphis school. A Caucasian girl from another city being thrown right into the middle of Memphis.
Right.
Kind of
Fish
a
out
sink or
of water
swim.
story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Haley Parker played the little sister, and CJ showed up on set a few times, and then Travis Stone played one of the teachers. The one that was tough, but it was tough love.
Right.
Which he just pulled off
So-
perfectly.
With Pick Up the Phone,
Sure.
you got to work as a director. Primarily you're an actor.
Correct.
I know you did I Am or Am I?
Am I?
Okay.
Yes.
You did
Yes.
Am I with
Piano Man
Piano Man
Pictures, Chad
Pictures.
Allen Barton, Shelby Baldock, Eric Tate.
Okay. Now, who actually wrote that one?
That was a co-write between Eric Tate and Chad Allen Barton.
Okay, and the director was Chad on that one.
Well, once again, it was a co-write, co-direct, but
okay.
they both had a heavy influence with that.
Okay. Well, I know they're pretty tight, and
Sure.
again, they're one of the groups that we hear just.
Absolutely.
They're going to be one of the ones that's guiding the future, the near future, of Memphis cinema.
I'm pleased to have
I
had the
hope
chance to
that
work
we are
with them.
beside them as that happens, but I think they have the capacity to leave us in the dust very quickly.
I talked to Shelby Baldock this morning, actually. He was in New Jersey on tour with the North Mississippi All-Stars. So, while they're doing these things as filmmakers, they're also going off. Shelby is working
Shelby's
as a
quite a
musician,
musician,
right now.
so-
Exactly. That's what's taking him on tour right now.
So, well, you also, now, I've seen you on bass, seen you on guitar. I know that you were a dance instructor for a while.
Was, yeah.
What don't you do?
I've just had the pleasure of pursuing a lot of different facets of the entertainment industry. And anything that involves performing, I'd love to
But
give a shot.
you've excelled, not just been good. You've excelled at most of these things. Now, Pick Up the Phone. A lot of people may not understand when they see, because that was such a lightning thing. They may not really understand what you were doing with that film, because I don't think that it is, because it's a 48-hour production, I don't think it was given the opportunity to really develop.
Sure.
So you kind of had to work with the dialogue you had to work with the scenes you had.
Mm-hmm.
I think the filmmaker is far better than the film portrays.
Well, thank you.
Do you have plans of getting behind the camera on something else?
I'd certainly like to. Really, unfortunately, time is a big killer for me right now.
Time and or money is always the two.
This is such a great city, and there's so much good going on here, and so many opportunities to work and really practice a craft. And a lot of people can't devote proper time, myself included. Right now, I'm
Many of us
find
can't.
myself working full time at the day job.
Absolutely.
In order to.
I have a part-time job that just gave me 7 hours of overtime this week. So, I mean, I get, and that's why I say, and when I say these things, it sounds like I'm being harsh. Oh, people in town can't write good stories. It's not that people in town can't. It's that people in town aren't pushing themselves to do so. Too many of us, and I've done it, too many of us are so happy to finally get that idea on paper that we just want to go do it now.
Sure.
Right.
But table reads reveal a lot of problems
Yes.
that you cannot help. Sitting down and reading it out loud to yourself is a start, and will cause a re-edit or a rewrite if you are at all good at reading out loud. But getting it into the hands of actors, letting someone bring life to something to where it's coming from a different angle than yourself, I think is a key ingredient in writing and developing.
I love
You have
having
to hear
groups
that.
like Scriptwrite in town, and that was once again that was Shelby Elwood who
Mhm.
ended up championing that. Lee Gordon had a film, Write Club.
Yeah.
He had the screenplay equivalent, and then Gil Hayes also had the
Yeah.
stage play outlet
Oh,
there.
right, that's
right.
right.
And those ended up merging to an extent as all three kind of came together,
Yeah.
and a lot of writers found themselves hearing aloud what they had in their head for the very first time, because they just hadn't even thought, oh, this line would have a different inflection, or
Was-
the way this comes together.
I was going to say, one of the biggest problems I think a lot of the writers have is that most of us are young writers. And I don't necessarily mean we're, 14. I mean, we haven't written volumes and volumes and tons of scripts. We're new at this on some level. And the whole process of developing something, hearing it, knowing that this character and this character have to have two different voices, understanding what voice is in writing. You can't write, excuse me, you can't write an entire script in your own voice.
Right.
It doesn't work. You have to be able to give other characters, other characterization, other facets, other vocalization, other vocal styles, local color.
Right.
Going back to our, everybody's grade school storytelling techniques, understanding local color. Understanding that someone that grew up in this part of the country isn't going to say, you want to?
Right.
You want to is, that's Tennessee for do you want to? You're not going to hear that from someone who came from Canada.
Right.
Knowing that when you write character is essential. And there is no better way than to hear people read, like you said, to hear what you've written out loud, to hear a different voice put to something is essential, especially to a young writer who hasn't really understood what voice and separate voices are.
Sure. Now, how did you particularly find yourself first finding your own voice in your writing?
I don't know if I completely have, honestly.
Okay.
There are times when I look at some of the things I've written and think it's a little too singular. Happy Hour, which I think is a great story idea. I really do think that that is a film, if I go with that script as is, which was my intention from the start, if I go from that script, which is draft 14, I think, then I absolutely have to do it where I let actors play. I can't say, stick to the word. Because if they stick to the word, that film's going to put people to sleep. It's going to be like sitting down listening to me play every part. And whether I'm a good actor or a bad actor, no actor's good enough to play all 2 hours. Well, okay, Patrick Stewart. No actor's good enough to play all 2 hours, every character, convincingly on screen. It's just not going to work. So I would have to let, whether it's you or Darius Newsom, Daniel Martine, myself, whoever else might be in town that I could put in something like this, I would have to let them take the characters and make them their own.
Sure.
So that those voices would become distinct and distinctive from each other. As far as the types of stories I want to tell, that I knew right away, early on. Twilight Zone. was one of the first things I remember as a child. From there, it was Marvel Comics, and then it was Edgar Allan Poe. I've actually got this comedy and tragedy that's on my arm. I jokingly named them Stan and Edgar for Stan Lee and Edgar Allan Poe, because as opposite directions as that writing style as their writing styles might be, those were the two things that influenced me most from ages 6 to 14. And those are such formulative years. And the thing with Edgar Allan Poe was always seeing the dark side of the human brain, most especially what it does to itself. Think of the Telltale Heart. There's nothing happening in that film, in that story, except one man and the knowledge of what he has already done plaguing him.
It just swallows him.
It's one man's brain torturing itself while mundane, generic, repetitious routine.
So we're talking about Hitchcock earlier, the power of the mind. And,
Exactly.
it's like Poe understood that, Hitchcock understood that.
Exactly. And I mean, with Poe, you even got it in his poetry.
Oh, yeah.
Just a few simple lines could just make you stop and go, wow. And then I would jump over and I'd start reading Marvel Comics. And now I was getting this weird sense of justice, very clear sense of social responsibility,
Right.
personal responsibility, intellectual responsibility. Then I'd close all the books and I'd go downstairs and I'd watch Twilight Zone. And I'd get this tale that sets something up, and then I'd get to the end of it and there'd be this moral meaning behind it. So for me, when I tell a story, I hope that in the end there is some aspect of that story that is making people confront, challenge, or consider some aspect of their own thought process or living process.
Sure.
Morning Ritual, you've both seen.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's about communication.
Sure.
There's not a word spoken. How's that communication? Go out into your world. How much communication is there? Not nearly enough. And it is especially true in home life. That's why I chose the mundane husband-wife setting. In order to say anything, the woman has to give up her ability to speak. It's that O. Henry irony that sets up this whole tale, and by the time you get to the end of it, my desire, my personal hope, is that people that watch this will really think about how it is they communicate with the people around them, especially a significant other. Think of children who are raised in that kind of a household, where the parents are just awful to each other. Is that better or worse than a broken home? I come from a broken home, and I sometimes wonder, I spend a lot of time wondering, what would it be like to have a daddy? I've met my father, I know my mother. Dear God, what would it have been like to live in that? Because they, in the 30 years they didn't know each other, they went completely opposite directions. And their personalities would never mesh. What would that have turned me and my brothers and sister into? To see that much chaos and to be around that much chaos. When really all it takes is for people to get over the ego, sit down and just talk. Communicate with each other. And that was the purpose of that film. Happy Hour, I don't know if you've read the whole thing or not, I can't remember. It's about choices. It's about the choices that we make every day because we don't consider the consequences. Every choice we make takes us down a path. You're at point A and you can make choice 1 or choice 2. You go down this path with 1 and this path with 2. Where do those take you? Because it's film, because it's story, I went with where the drama is, the darker choices. But also, look at our society. We are a society of people making, consistently, bad and wrong choices. For wrong reasons. Another project I'm working on right now is, I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's intended to be my first feature. It's called Do As I Do. And it is about what it takes to withstand the pressures of something stronger than the self. In this particular instant, one individual discovers he has an ability over someone else. A stronger mind, basically. And it's about that character guiding and talking this other character into something, because he's not strong enough to actively make his own choices. So there's still a lot of choice involved, and that is probably an element that would be consistent for me as a voice, if you will.
Well, kind of following along those lines about the mentor that uses the guiding force, the stronger mind, if you will, for the evil side of things, I'd say that can come right back around to not just Memphis, but any community where you look at something, especially in the arts. You look at all of these relationships where you pull somebody that considers themselves an artist and you ask them, okay, who is your inspiration? And more than likely, they're going to say, oh, okay, this one individual had a significant influence on the artistic direction that I took with my life. Now, we're assuming here that for the greater good, those individuals that would consider themselves the mentors on those sides would have a benevolent direction with everything they did.
You would hope.
You would hope. But ultimately, people are people.
Yeah.
That's right.
And you never really, ego's a powerful thing, and even people who don't have it, I've felt it at moments. I've had young, attractive people, young girls come up to me and like, oh my God, you make film, that's so cool. There's an obviously immediate temptation. There's the immediate like, wow, they think I'm cool, which fuels any temptation. And it's very easy to suddenly find yourself not the good person you thought you were. Fortunately, I don't go that route. I've made better choices than that. But it exists.
You've got a lovely wife, of course.
And that helps.
Right, it does, and also...
But it is there.
That can, when you start multiplying generations of this kind of misleading attitude, oh, you should stay away from this person, you shouldn't go towards that person.
Yeah.
I really think, and this is something that I was thinking about earlier today, there are missed opportunities in Memphis because someone had a little personal thing with someone, so they'll steer
There are a lot of missed
potential
opportunities
Oh
in
yeah,
this
they'll
town.
steer a potential connection away. They could have been something good. And I think for Memphis to really benefit the way it can and really move forward in the direction it can, be it taking on the film incentives, really pulling together some Class A productions with the right people in the right positions, everybody needs to be moving in the general same direction. This clickiness can really kill a city.
The funny thing is that all of us do want the same thing
Right.
ultimately.
Different paths to get there.
None of us necessarily want to step on others to do it.
Sure.
It's not an active goal that anybody's actively stepping that I'm aware of. Most of the filmmakers in town are very generous people just trying to do their thing. The thing is, we are supposed to be a community. And I think if we could find little ways, and I want this show to become one of those things, much like Fuel Films has tried to become one of those things, and I hope that can continue to grow into it. We need to communicate.
Absolutely.
Because how often have I talked to an actor and they've said, oh, I'm filming with Dan Baker that weekend.
Yeah.
Or I'm filming with Eric Tate that weekend. Or, oh, I didn't know they were filming. Had I known that, I wouldn't have scheduled this weekend.
Right.
I would have scheduled a different time.
Right.
I've actually called a few other filmmakers or paid attention to what they were doing when it's posted and made sure, and Ken can back me up on this, we've done it a couple times, made sure that other people weren't making something because we might want a specific actor.
Sure.
I've delayed a shoot because I want Don Myers, and I knew he had a project.
Right.
Right.
So I've delayed a shoot. Well, now I'm delaying it longer because of weather. But I want the right people.
Sure.
So there's certain things you have to do, and if we communicate these to each other, actively support each other, get out there and put egos aside and help each other make the production the best it can be,
Sure.
then all of us get raised up to the
Right.
next plateau.
Right.
All of
Right.
us create better quality productions.
Right. Absolutely.
And outside of our city, a lot of people suddenly go, oh, hey, look what's happening there.
Right.
And Nashville may not ever give us the incentives we deserve, even though we're in the same state. But if HBO is going to continue to come to Mississippi, and none of us too far away to go for a job,
That's true.
I'll go 20 minutes for a paycheck.
Yeah. I would say this. So what I remember this actually before even Fuel Film was formed, probably 2006 or 2007. At Christopher Reyes's Live from Memphis, there was a party. He had these. I think he still has them. He had like this really great end of the year party, big
Oh, down
celebration
at
party. Yeah,
Madison.
yeah, at his loft. And he gave this speech, and I'll never forget it. And he talked about how, in the arts, in filmmaking to be sure, but in arts in general, a lot of people are guilty of what he termed, or what's been come to known as silo mentality, and that is to say, we're all in our individual little towers and our silos. We look out and we see people in their towers and their silos, but we don't
exit.
We don't do but anything but beyond but look and say, oh yeah, they're over there, they're doing this, And then I read there's this book on business development, and it said, like, if you really want to increase your borders, you have to learn to drop your border guards, and you have to learn to talk to people.
You have to climb out of the
You have to climb out of the towers and talk to people and find out what they're doing. And it may not be your cup of tea, so to speak, but
it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to be, and you can still grow and learn from that person and learn from that production, and and maybe even you have something to offer in the way of help or the way of advice or
Absolutely.
what have you.
Let's pick up on this in
Sure.
just a second. I want to take another break here real quick. We're going to take a look at a clip from Pick Up the Phone,
Excellent.
directed by Mr. Graham Elwood. We'll be right back after this.
Please pick up the phone or call me. I'll do anything. Baby, please pick up the phone. They said you hadn't been coming to work, and you won't answer the phone. How can we talk if you won't even answer this phone? I miss you. And I miss my kids. I don't even know where you are. I need you. And I can't stand it. I don't know how much longer I can take it without you. I don't even want to. God, baby, please pick up the phone or call me. I'll do anything.
Hey, Cheryl. You okay? You look like you just saw a ghost.
He called again.
Who called?
A man trying to reach his wife.
Oh yeah, I deleted a couple of calls from him over the weekend. What a loser.
He sounds really bad.
Bummer. I wonder who he is.
Yeah, I wonder what happened. He said his wife left and took their kids. No wonder he's so desperate.
I'm sure he deserved it.
All right, that was a quick look at pick up the phone and you ran the Avarice trailer. I believe Avarice was just accepted to the Hot Springs Festival, was it not? As one of their lead selections. So we congratulate Dan Baker on that.
Absolutely.
I wish the best for him. We unfortunately were, in fact, denied, which, because of circumstances we can't really discuss, I kind of expected.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, because of the arrangement on the front end, we never made any payment.
Right.
And I figured once they changed the way they were producing the fest, that probably wasn't going to work out.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's unfortunate, but at the same time, we actually would not have been able to make it.
Yeah.
So it's better for us this way, ironically.
Well, there'll be more.
Oh, there'll be
more
plenty
fest,
more, and we'll have more films. So.
Right.
Now, fuel films.
Fuel film.
I do want to cover a little bit about that because we kind of
Sure.
skipped over that a little
Okay.
bit. We got stuck
Okay.
on Cobraney and
Right.
Rich Newman's film, but I know fuel films is an absolutely essential part of building a community in this city, I think.
Thank you. That's very. We hope to be.
Well, you in your first year, you created something pretty special. You've given people the opportunity to challenge themselves, to network, to meet new people. I met several new people that way.
Good.
That's how I met his mother.
Right.
Which
I met your mother?
Believe how I met you. Same way. Which actually like that show. But there were a number of people I met through that. You included originally. I met through the Fuel Film event.
Oh, is it really? Okay, I thought we met before that, but all right.
We met, but we didn't meet.
Yeah.
It was one of those hi. But
Yeah, sure.
at Fuel Films, we actually had the chance to talk
Sure.
and figure out who each other was. And I discovered someone that I have an immense respect for and is kind of, for me, one of my go-to when I have a question. But you guys just moved offices.
We moved our offices. We moved from the Emerge building downtown to the Playhouse in the Square building,
which I think is a fantastic place for you.
It is. It's really a tremendous. It's a tremendously new and good opportunity for us in that. So our big brother or sister organization, StartCo, which was formerly Launch Memphis, which is rebranded as StartCo. They offer a parallel course for what we want to do in film to what they're doing in technology and software and startup companies.
Interesting.
And so, I mean, Fuel Film has we have a multi, tiered agenda, and a platform. And part of it, which we're going to get into this year, is we're putting together an accelerator program. That is to say, it's going to be, I think right now the title that we're calling the program is the Fuel Film Accelerator, which is a business accelerator. And that is to say that what we want to do is we want to offer individuals or groups that have company ideas, either film production company ideas or businesses related to the film industry, a program where they can come to the accelerator and get advice, how to put together a business plan, how to market the plan, how to get and/or court investors, and take them through those different evolutions, just much like StartCo does for technology companies and startups. Also, we want to continue our mission of education and support, and being the environment over there, we have less space, but we have more space. Our actual office space or suite is a little bit smaller than it was downtown, but the overall space that's offered in the StartCo area is larger. There's several meeting rooms available, a conference room. As I mentioned earlier in the segment, we had the space to do a full table read with an entire cast sitting in a very large conference room. We're going to do it again this Wednesday, and so we want to offer our the space, but also the expertise and leadership to go with it as a resource for the filmmaking community.
Well, obviously there'd be a lot of things that we would have to talk about off camera and discuss, but I would love if there is any way in which this show In Frame can be a benefit or a help in that regard, because I know you've often talked to out-of-town talent.
Right.
I'd love to be able to bring them on here and actually be able to sit and talk with them in this capacity, because we might find those little nuggets of information that might not come in a Q&A.
Right.
Or any, and any other way that this show could be used to perpetuate film in this region.
Well, it's a tremendous benefit to have a show like this, or like the radio show that you were doing too, because you have this, it's both a platform, but you also have, with it being online, there's the opportunity to comment back and forth, and then even I would even say things like tell people, oh, by the way, we have a Facebook page, Fuel Film has a Facebook page and a website, and a little shameless, or not so shameless promotion there.
Well, that's, I mean,
but
one
in order,
of the points.
Right, no, right. In order for the community to connect, either through Fuel Film or through the events that we have, and then I should also mention that, so next Thursday, which is September the 19th, there will be a Memphis Film Society Fuel Film mixer at Jack Magoo's that Rich Newman is hosting, and there will probably be, hopefully you and a lot of the community
I intend
will
to
turn
be.
out.
I'm really upset
Right.
that I missed the last one, because
Yeah.
I remembered, I think half an hour into it, I was like, oh my God, that's now.
That's one of those events that if you're working in film in this city, I mean, you really need to be there.
You have
because
to.
there's new faces turning up all the time.
And I like I said, I'm upset with myself that I wasn't able to make the last one, especially when it was a case of I simply forgot. It wasn't a case of I was on the clock somewhere,
Right.
or I'm actively on a set somewhere.
Right.
It really was, I'm sitting at my desk going, you know what just happened an hour ago?
Yeah.
So.
Because there will be several, as I understand it, I know that several filmmakers will be making announcements about projects.
I actually know of one thing
Uh-huh.
that might be talked about there that, and I don't know how much I should or shouldn't, so all I'm going to say is names. Daniel Martin called me earlier this week, talking to me about something that he and Dorf are organizing, which sounds fantastic. I think it's the kind of thing that would be a benefit to the filmmakers in this community, to kind of give them the push, the rush, and maybe it will start breaking down those walls.
Well,
that
right, and
and I don't think these are walls of design. I think these are walls of comfort.
Right.
I have become comfortable working with Ken.
Yeah.
So anytime I think of a film, I'm already thinking Ken's probably shooting this.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I partnered with Jamie, is because Jamie is capable of doing the same job.
Yeah.
Differently, which means I get a different effect.
Sure.
Now I've challenged myself and worked with different people.
Sure.
And I think that's essential in growth.
Yes.
And
I was gonna say at the mixers too. It's this thing where like our meeting. It's like, you can have more than the essential. Than the just like very quick. Oh, that's who that person is. You can actually go up and meet other members,
have a conversation,
and have a conversation with someone. People make announcements about projects, and if you find yourself interested in the project, you can go up and talk to the filmmaker and find out the particulars and the details.
It's a great way for and I know that he's over there. I hope, Alex, that you're hearing this. It's a great way for an actor who might not know all these directors to actually sit and hear, that's the director, that's the project, does that interest me?
Right.
That's an opportunity to meet the person, see if that's the type of person you feel you could work with, or if that's, they got their head up their ass and I don't want to deal with it. Because there's always going to be those people.
Right.
And, we've got everything in this town from hobbyist to professional and everything in between. So you don't know what you're encountering at any given moment. But that is a fantastic opportunity to discover some of the filmmakers in town that you might not find on Facebook easily.
Right.
Or you might not casually hear the announcement because you're not friends with the right friend of the friend of the friend.
Yeah. So.
But, in Alex's case, I sat down and I wrote down a list of filmmakers who I think these are filmmakers to watch. These are filmmakers to establish a relationship with in Memphis. And it was Dan Baker, Eric Tate, Chad Allen Barton, Shelby Baldock, Ryan Parker, G.B. Shannon, Mike McCarthy. Off the top of my head, I can't remember now other names I might have added to that list, but it was all people I truly think any actor, any crew person, any director, and any writer should contact these people. If you want to be a good film writer in town, you should really talk to Willie Bearden.
Oh yeah.
It wouldn't hurt to let Daniel Martine read it.
Right.
Honestly. Not because I think he's the best writer, not because I think he's not. But he's one of the few people in this town that has read that many professional scripts.
Yeah.
He knows
Yeah.
what he's looking at. Put it in his hands. Be ready. Be ready for an honest opinion, but you should be ready for an honest opinion from anyone, and you shouldn't be giving your work to people you can't get an honest opinion from. Friends and family will often say, yeah, that's really good, because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Right.
That's not going to help you as a writer.
Right.
You need a David Tankersley or a Willie Bearden or even a Daniel Martine to step in and be honest with you. Blunt, if necessary.
One other perk of these Film Society mixers, something that earlier on in Fuel Films mixing days, we saw a lot of turnout of other aspects. You'd see investors come out, you would see musicians come out, and it seems like as these Film Society, as Rich Newman's group and the Fuel Film mixers are picking up steam again, you're seeing more of a mix of not just the filmmakers, not just the people you're going to see there every week, but then you're going to see musicians that you can use that are looking to promote themselves
Absolutely.
by contributing great music to the films that are locally made.
Well, I tell people this show, we're filmmakers. It's called In Frame because, is it in frame? But it's about art.
Right.
Because every single form of art, name any form of art, and you can almost immediately think, how would that apply to film?
Sure.
A painting, you gotta have something on the walls in the background.
Right.
Furniture, you gotta sit on something. Clothing designers, well, we need costuming. Makeup, hair, music, it doesn't matter. Any form of art applies to film, and that is why this is opened. Even novelists.
Sure.
Novels often get turned into film. It's a root of story. We invite all of these people to come on this show and get their 15 minutes, as it were.
The limits your imagination with how you make these connections with different artists and crossing over the lines, and the mediums that they use to do what they do. I mean, I have a radio show on the Jazz Lover, 91.7 is WUMR. Here's another shameless plug, of course.
Please do.
Right, Tuesday mornings from 10 to noon. I'm on this Chatt, Graham the Entertainer, and we've also streamed WUMR.memphis.edu as well as 91.7 FM here in town, Central Time. And I love being able to bring in people. You don't often hear interviews in the general music section. You will hear some great interviews on that station, absolutely. But I've enjoyed bringing in people that might not actually have that connection to jazz and to that music, and be able to talk to them about how what they do is relevant to Memphis and the arts community. And I love it that we have outlets like this, that we can talk to people and we can make these connections and bridges, because
it's necessary.
All it takes is one person watching that goes, oh, I can use the information that person just put out there and take that and develop it in something I'm working on.
And no matter how much a city government supports its communities or its arts community, it's never enough.
Right.
And we're in a city that it really doesn't support anywhere near like it should. Especially when you consider this city's history.
Right.
In only the arts. Rock and roll, baby. Right here.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous that we don't support more artistic ventures in this city, because this city attracts the artistic. And someone described it recently. Actually, I'm stealing a quote, and I probably won't get it exact. Kent's working on a project that we're going to be launching in 2014, where he is interviewing individuals about Memphis. And in this test one he just did, the subject said something about Memphis is a wonderful place to come and realize your potential, to find your talent, to unlock it. Unfortunately, that is kind of where it stalls in this city. And I jumped from that quote-ish to Craig Brewer a couple years back, who said to me, actually he was talking about his wife. She said she wanted to be a clothing designer. And he said, that's fantastic. Leave this city, go to New York, make a name for yourself, and then come back to Memphis and you can be a success here.
Right. It's sad, but it's true.
But he agreed. You can do all the legwork, get all the preliminary, work out all the bugs, shake off the rust, whatever it might be. You can do all of that here and find your footing. But then you have to leave this city to stand up. The minute you are seen, the minute you are spotted, the minute you turn into anything, anywhere else, you're going to be on the front page of this paper, and they're going to claim you as a Memphis hometown boy.
It's funny you mentioned that. There was a 48-hour film in the very first round that Fuel Film hosted. Jerry Dye came in. You recognize
Soul.
him, Voices of the South. It was Soul, right,
Soul.
right. Jerry Dye,
Fantastic
you know, his
writer.
brother John, also from Memphis, Touched by an Angel and all that.
Sure.
Well, Jerry came in with a pitch that he thought of in his head on the way over. He wasn't even going to pitch anything.
I do remember that.
And he
love
was
that.
talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
how Memphis, Egypt, and
Yeah.
mythology was
Yeah.
the place that the soul would go after
Yeah.
it died to find its direction.
To find
in the
direction.
universe. Right. And he was equating that with this short film, about 6-7 minutes, if that, to Memphis, Tennessee, and all of the people that come here to find their direction, find their footing, shake off the rust, and then boom, it hits.
Names have power. And, you know, I don't care if you're naming a cat, naming a dog, naming a kid, or naming a town. You should know what your name means before you apply it to
Right,
something.
right,
Because I think whether it's the strength of common consciousness, or maybe there's some ethereal, beyond my understanding reason, but I really do think that a name, an identity, is a power. All kind. We were talking about mythologies and cultural legends earlier.
Right.
To name a thing is to have power over a thing. To know its true name is to truly have power over something or someone. And I think that is, you know, we named this Memphis.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a good idea or a bad idea based
Well-
on the legends, but it has become Memphis. And this is that plain.
It's often someone once said that that a city is really a collection of people's dreams. It sounds strange, but then you think about it, and you think about, okay, but the dreams of the politicians, the dreams of the architects, the designers, but the people that also worked and lived and died and fought and everything, what did they come to that city for? Well, probably to fulfill a hope or a dream or an aspiration that they had. So it becomes, the city itself takes the form, the collective form of all of those dreams, all that psychic power.
Absolutely.
So then when you, as you're saying, and when it's given a name, it's given a focus,
And just think about the voices
Sure.
that have flown through this city.
Sure.
At one point or another, or even currently.
Right.
This city has always had a melting pot of untapped potential, energy, power, and skill, and ability, and it's a creative force. And, you think about Memphis, most people think Elvis, most people think music and stuff like that, but Memphis is America. This is the heart. And I'm not from here. And there have been times when I've not had the fondest opinions or feelings towards the city. But one thing that's true is if you look at this country as an anatomical body, and it has a heart, it has to be Memphis. Because everything, you think of, I don't like to use the word culture because we're not old enough and we haven't really developed a solid, but everything that is this nation, whether it's, and you might have to tag on here, the hotel industry, the grocery store industry, rock and roll, civil rights, shipping,
Automotive.
communication, all of these things started in Memphis and spread outward from Memphis to touch and build the rest of this nation. That's what a heart does. I worry if that is true. Because look at where this city is right now.
Right.
And if that's what we're pumping outward from the heart, what's going to happen to the extremities?
There's a lot of cholesterol in those artists.
That's a word for it. That is a word for it. But I think that it is up to the arts to heal that. I think, I mean, as corny as it might sound, you look at history, there were the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages were followed by the Renaissance, which was a whole new becoming of being, a whole new wave of artistic expression. I think we're there again. I think we need a renaissance. And I don't think it's something that needs to happen in one place. But I think if it's going to happen in one place, why shouldn't it be in America's heart? So that it can be something that will pump outward to the rest of this city, or to the rest of this nation, and possibly the world beyond that. Because, you know, look at the world around us. Most of us are kind of scared to, but if we really look at the big picture, the arts are dying. Even in Hollywood, they're pumping out repetition. You know, studios don't want to spend money on new product, new, interesting, challenging, risky product. So we're going to remake something we own already. We're going to make a sequel to something we own already, so they can spend less money. They're entertaining the lowest common denominator audience. We're getting, I can't think the word I'm looking for exactly, but we're getting flatline entertainment. There's no beat to anything.
You know, I gotta hand it to the kind of people that make their money doing what sells. They get their security doing that, and then
There's a place for that.
Right.
There definitely is.
And then turn and take that and apply it to what they really want to do, what they really find their passion for.
Mhm.
I'd like to use James Franco as an example,
Mhm.
who, by the way, has a PhD, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
Right. And he, I mean, you know him from Spider-Man and this and that and the other. And he's doing a trilogy of films based on the writings of William Faulkner currently, doing a lot of shooting in Mississippi, and I know Memphis actors have already been tapped for that. And that's one of those things that, I mean, that's something that I'd be interested in doing. I'd love it if I had the freedom to just go ahead and make the art
I'm so glad that he's doing
now.
that, because that is, like we were saying earlier, that is one of the opportunities that is coming this way. And he has been posting casting calls, like,
Well, he
every
took the
other
name
2
that he made
months.
for
It's-
himself and something that might have been the fluff, might have been just the blockbuster, get it done kind of thing, and then he took that and redirected all of that energy and all of the connections
I have
that
to
he
admit,
made
when I saw
in a
that
great
happen,
way.
my respect for him, I already kind of liked him anyway, but when I saw that he was kind of
didn't
stepping
just-
away from spotlight to bring something more literate to screen, I
and
really
very
felt
challenging. I mean,
thankful.
it's really a challenging thing to try and bring Faulkner to the
God,
screen.
yes.
You know, so
I worry that
Yeah.
it will be rough, but the fact that he's trying,
the fact that he tried,
someone's coming out
or
of
he's trying,
Hollywood
yeah.
to try and do something like that, I think is
impressive.
very impressive.
Absolutely.
And I'm upset that we don't have a nation or a film world in our country that allows for David Lynch films to be more mainstream than they are. Or to allow someone like names are just escaping me as I speak, but to allow Bergman, Ingmar Bergman.
Oh, Ingmar Bergman, yeah,
You
sure,
know,
sure. Yeah.
he would never make a movie nowadays.
Right.
I mean,
It
he
would be
would,
impossible.
but no one would see it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, you look at David Lynch.
Sitting right behind us in Blackwatch here.
He's, you know, I hate to say it, but he's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
He's not going to be making films for a lot longer.
Right.
Who's the next David Lynch? Where are our young Ingmar Bergmans? They're all in towns like this, across the nation, across the world, unable to get the kind of support they need to truly step up. And those people could be the Da Vinci of their art form.
Sure.
And they're not getting anywhere.
Sure.
I've often said that now is not really conducive to a Mozart. Someone who has that kind of potential, that much gift. We don't know how to handle it. We can't market it. We don't know how to sell it. So hide it. And people with true talent, whether it's music or film, are not getting exposed like they should. And I commend Fuel Films on doing what they can to bring those people together. I love that your next goal is to look at the business side of things, because I think as a filmmaker, myself and other filmmakers in this town, actors even, they need to start looking at what they do as a business. Actors are CEO of themselves.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
they're the marketer for themselves. They're their agent. Even if they have an agent, they're their own agent.
Right.
And that business side is something we all need to embrace and really, really step up to. Because for Memphis cinema, for Memphis community, that's the next step, is proving that we are viable as a business market. Because that's the only thing that's going to bring money to town.
Right.
I'd like to thank David Merrill, Fuel Films, Cobrainy Media, and Chatt Graham Elwood as well. Hopefully we'll be seeing you. I'd love to work with you on something. We'll hopefully be able to arrange something
We'll make it
soon.
happen.
But I would also like to have you both back on the show at some point.
Of course.
Love to sit and talk with you about what we can do, Fuel Films and In Frame together.
Love to.
And see if there's not
Thanks
not
very much
something
for
we can
having
do.
us.
Absolutely, and we will definitely bring you back.
If I can just briefly say, we have a Facebook page, we have a website. Listen to his radio show; it's fantastic. I listen to it all the time. WMR or WMR.org,
Yeah,
right?
Tuesday mornings 10 to noon, WUMR.memphis.edu or 91.7 on your FM dial here in Memphis.
And
Great show.
fuelfilms.org, right?
Yep. .org.
All right. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week. Thank you very much. Have a good one.